Welcome to the first episode of TaraElla and Friends. Today, I'm going to examine in depth my view in recent years that the trans community is going over a cliff and the reasons for that. My regular audience would know that it's something that I'm personally very worried about as a trans woman. I'm increasingly worried about the misunderstanding and backlash that is developing, and frankly, I sometimes feel at a loss about what we can do to change course. So today, I'm having a discussion with my friend, Alternative Thoughts, about this. Firstly, let's talk about your view that the trans community is going over a cliff. While I understand your concerns, I think the reality is more complicated. I mean, trans acceptance is also advancing in some ways too. For example, when the US House of Representatives passed the Equality Act again earlier this year, President Biden tweeted that transgender rights are human rights. He singled out trans rights to be mentioned, and this was also echoed by Taylor Swift. In a way, there has never been that much positive attention on trans people and trans rights. I'm a natural pessimist and I tend to look on the pessimistic side of things. But even granting progress happening in some areas, there is also increasing backlash in many other areas. I feel that the whole trans discussion is becoming too divisive, and that isn't generally good news for any minority group looking for acceptance and accommodation. I'm also worried about the way trans people are being linked to postmodern ideology in the minds of some people. That is both extremely unfair to anti-postmodern trans people like myself and also creates a major roadblock for trans acceptance going forward. I guess these concerns represent real things that are happening, at least to some extent. However, have you thought about the fact that it may only be happening among a small segment of society, like the saying, a storm in a teacup? I mean, there are all sorts of discussions about trans people and trans issues, particularly in the extremely online world. But if you look at the discussion people are having at the local bars and clubs, I doubt trans issues even feature there. And I doubt they even know what postmodernism is either. Thanks for the reality check. The extremely online world doesn't really reflect the real world at all. Political events of the past few years have reminded us of this again and again. However, the divisive debate is already clearly affecting politics in many US states and in the UK, and often not in a very good way. This is something that we really need to change. I get your concerns. However, political debates and even policy can be affected by noisy minorities on both sides beating their chests, even as everyday people don't actually understand the issues, let alone take a strong stance. In situations like this, what we need to remember is that there are still many hearts and minds left to be won out there. So it's not too late to change the debate. Remember that most people out there have never been affected by the toxic debate in the extremely online world. So a healthier discourse in the wider community is still possible. It is still something that could exist in the future, a future yet to be created. I agree wholeheartedly with that. The future is still to be created. And a healthy, rational discussion on trans issues is still very possible in the wider community. The future will all depend on what direction we take now. That's why I'm trying hard to be the change I want to see in the trans community. To be honest, it's lonely and frustrating at times. But if nobody even tries, then we are truly doomed. So, what change exactly do you want to see? I want a more constructive dialogue. I want us to consider all good faith viewpoints from all stakeholders in a good faith and rational manner. I want people from all sides to actually come up with workable solutions rather than just dismiss the voices that don't agree with you. I want everyone to have an attitude where we attempt to build workable solutions together rather than to own the enemy. While agreement may not come overnight, having the right attitude to everything is the first step, the first positive step to a brighter future.